This is the city of Kamloops, home to 87,000 people. The lure of a peaceful afternoon draws many to the tranquil beauty of fragile grasslands in and around the city. All this is about to change. Is this the future of Kamloops? KGHM Polska, a large foreign company with little experience in open-pit mining, is proposing to operate a huge open-pit mine within city limits. It's not just any mine. The size, the location, and the special risks of this mine make the decision on the Ajax mine a significant one for any city. It's a mine of giant proportions, with a footprint covering over 25 square kilometers of land, much of which is unique and endangered grassland. Wrapped around the proposed western perimeter of the open pit is the Kinder Morgan pipeline, planned for double or triple expansion. Parts of the mining operation would be located as close as 1.5 kilometers from houses, with ore stockpiles as close as 1.25 kilometers from an elementary school. The mine site borders the area intended by the city for residential expansion. The tailings and waste rock facilities will be massive, the tailings alone covering 4.2 square kilometers and towering close to 500 feet in the air, nearly as tall as the Seattle Space Needle. The mountainous tailings stack will be very visible from the Coquihalla Highway, gateway to the city. The open pit will be over 1,600 feet deep. There is no guarantee that these and the other massive waste rock facilities will not be even greater in size.
I talk to people, I say, how would you like Highland Valley on your doorstep? And then I realize they don't know what I'm talking about. They haven't been to Highland Valley to look at the scope of that enterprise. And so they have no idea what I'm talking about when I use that as a reference, but that's exactly what we're going to get on the margins of our community.
Although Kamloops has coexisted with more distant mining operations, people are understandably concerned about many aspects of this particular project, so much so that many plan to leave if the proposal is approved. KGHM Polska promises economic benefits in the form of 380 jobs. That is less than 1% of the 50,000-plus jobs already occupied by the city's workforce. With 400 new jobs at New Gold and 200 jobs already announced by the TELUS data center, many question whether the city really needs Ajax jobs enough to justify the risks the operation would present. Will Ajax jobs be non-union following the New Gold example? Federal legislation enabling the hiring of foreign workers at reduced wages and labor subcontracting practices make it questionable how many jobs will actually materialize to benefit the local workforce. In later mine life, KGHM has already announced it intends to replace some jobs with conveyance systems. Intermittent operation of the mine would reduce the economic benefit. The low-grade Ajax deposit makes it extremely vulnerable to fluctuations in metal prices. Periodic shutdowns and layoffs are typical responses to depressed metal prices. Reclamation is not likely to take place during shutdowns when metal prices are low. Even at the end of mine life, examples like the Giant Mine abound, where companies have simply walked away and left taxpayers to pick up the bill for their destruction. Closer to home, this is the landscape left by the old Afton pit.
The Ajax development is essentially the work of a multinational corporation. And multinational corporations present two problems. The first is they don't care. And so when it comes to a country, they don't care. And when it comes to a little community like Kamloops, they really don't care. They don't have to care. So we know from past history with mining corporations, past history with industrial corporations, that they really place the community that they are in a third, fourth, or even fifth position when it comes to their decision making. Decision making focuses on money and only money. So as a consequence, we will not have much input. They won't listen to us. They're going to do what they're going to do. And when they leave, they're going to leave a mess behind. We know from the Giant Mine up in Yellowknife, for example, the mining corporation there left behind 25 to 30,000 tons of arsenic And it's going to cost the Canadian government, you and me, taxpayers, $500 million to clean that up. So I don't think we'll see much better than that actually from the Ajax mine operation. And here's what's going to happen. We'll get 385 jobs, 4,000 jobs plus will be created someplace else. This multinational corporation will remove $6 to $8 billion out of this area, if you will, with our resources, put it in their pockets, and 23 years from now, you're going to walk away. And I don't think it's worthwhile.
What are the costs if Ajax goes ahead? For this community steeped in ranching history, the cost for some is the loss of a way of life and possibly their homes.
I guess it was always a dream to have a log house to start with, and so I've accomplished that. And you know, I'm always enjoyed the ranch life and the country life. Right here on the fence line is where the East Waste Rock is going to be, and you know, nobody knows how close it is going to end up being to the fence line, but it's going to be up to 300 feet high. So at some point, I would think I'm going to lose my son, anyways, and nobody knows what's going to happen with the dust and all that kind of stuff. And I guess nobody will be able to answer that till it actually happens. Obviously, this is their main piece to the west, where they're going to put their East Waste Rock dump, but they do own the property below me and to the east. So, and the power line will be coming to the north. So, I'm not really sure. I would imagine at some point they're going to come speak to me and you know, give me my options that way. But to this point, I haven't heard from them. There's been some stress to the situation, no question. You know, it was my life savings and kind of my retirement dream and my dream. So I don't know what's going to actually happen.
Costs of the Ajax proposal include the loss of Inks Lake and the threats to Jocko Lake, a popular fishing spot and source of irrigation.
This is Jocko Lake. I consider it to be a jewel in the crown that we call Kamloops. It provides vital irrigation for our local farms. It provides many, many opportunities for fishermen, naturalists, dog walkers. Even Sunday drivers come up here to enjoy the beauty and serenity. In my opinion, Jocko must be preserved for future generations. Jocko has survived Afton Mine, but bears the scars. It can't survive another gaping mine pit and mountain-sized waste rock and tailing piles. Open the mining door to this proponent and watch as more and more applications to mine the Kamloops city appear.
Kamloops currently generates many millions of dollars in tournament revenue annually. We are home to a university with 2,000 jobs and 25,000 students. How will these features of Kamloops be affected by a giant mine overshadowing the city? What can be learned from the mayor of Cobalt, a city in the Ontario mining belt, which is struggling to rebuild itself in the aftermath of mining activity?
Well, when I think about Cobalt's experience as a mining town, there are a few things really that come to mind. We have mine hazards, mine tailings, crevices, openings. I'd have to say that probably in the last 15 or 20 years, nearly $30 million has been spent trying to mitigate the effects of, or the dangers surrounding some of these old mine sites. Open pit mining has its share of challenges. When you look at the mining as it occurred in Cobalt, some of it was it's certainly going to be a little more subtle. The effects compared to open pit mining. Open pit mining is huge. It's there's nothing subtle or covert about open pit mining. It'll be noisy, it'll be dusty, and you have to realize that once your community goes into this partnership for this mining venture, it will be known as a mining town. But there are things that mining towns can't attract. When I arrived in Sudbury, and people will talk about when it was like a moonscape, there was no vegetation. And that, that town suffered for years trying to outgrow or grow out of its reputation as a mining town. So when you get into mining, you have to go into it knowing full well what the long-term consequences are. And that's a decision you have to make with your eyes wide open.
Locally, concerns also exist regarding the impact this giant mine would have on the future of the city.
The biggest reason that people choose to move to Kamloops, choose to open business here, is livability. And we've known that for a long time. So how does livability change the perception of livability when we go from Canada's tournament capital, which says it's healthy, wonderful, vibrant community, to Kamloops, the city with an open pit mine in the city? My belief is that for every person that would choose to move to Kamloops because they're qualified to work in a mine, there will be a number of people who will choose not to come, whether that be a doctor, a student, somebody that wants to open up a business. They'll look at that and think, no, I think I'll choose a different community. The Mining Tenure Act is 150 years old, and what it does is it gives higher levels of government the authority to override any planning done at a local level, whether that's municipal, regional, First Nations. They can decide where a mine goes. So all of our planning, and planning is so important in any city, you plan to have good, well-ordered, sustainable growth. If they can come in and say, your zoning means nothing, we want a mine here, we're going to take that land. Where does that leave the city? Where does that leave developers in planning and seeing a future? Are they going to want to develop or buy property knowing that at any time the government can walk in and change the zoning for that area, which would then affect their development? And an open pit mine in this city will keep people away. So instead of it being this great economic boost to the city, in fact, it will have the opposite effect.
I believe that we're moving to a place where we're not going to be relying quite so much on these short-term, in the grand scheme of things, these short-term projects that have some economic benefit, but once they're done, they're done. So I think that we really need to decide what our future is, and this project, the future that I see for Kamloops, it doesn't really fit.
What are the costs in terms of health? Despite repeated requests, KGHM Polska has been unwilling to publicly release heavy metal assay results. And where are the company's baseline studies for heavy metals? Mining activities are known to release significant amounts of toxic metals. Because those toxins do not disappear, the cumulative effect over many years is a serious concern. What are the health risks for Kamloops residents and their children?
Mining is one of the top 3 most dangerous occupations according to the World Health Organization. It is also the most polluting. It's well known that there are very many toxic byproducts of copper mining. The dust, tailings, and wastewater contain heavy metals, some of which are radioactive. These will contaminate the local air and water, placing children, pregnant women, and elderly citizens at the highest risk. When I say nearby, other communities 40 kilometers away from a similar-sized mine have been able to clearly show health risks and contamination of their air and water. Lower levels of lead will lower children's IQ permanently and make them more likely to have lifelong behavior and learning problems. Mercury is another dangerous heavy metal byproduct of copper mining. It will end up in the water. They suffer the ill effects, which include birth defects, neurologic damage, and psychiatric disease. Finally, chromium and arsenic are common mining byproducts that also can contaminate groundwater, wells, ponds, creeks, or lakes. They are toxic to both humans and aquatic life. Diesel has been classified as a carcinogen by the World Health Organization because it is known to increase the rates of a variety of childhood cancers as well as lung cancer. It has been estimated that 90,000 liters of diesel fuel will be used by these mining vehicles each day. And where will the diesel fumes and the sulfur dioxide go? Into the local southwest Kamloops air, and then be carried by prevailing winds to the city's population up both the north and south Thompson River valleys. Increased vehicle exhaust will increase ozone levels and sulfur dioxide levels, both of which contribute to respiratory diseases such as asthma, chronic bronchitis, and emphysema. In the long run, this exposure significantly increases residents' risks for lung and other cancers.
I mean, I've lived here for a long time. I grew up here and came back here with my family to practice. And I certainly do have some concerns about the mine coming to the city and how that's going to affect things. I've got a lot of environmental concerns. Jocko Lake was where I caught my first fish, and I'm concerned about what's going to happen to that lake. I'm concerned about the air quality in the city, which apparently today is the worst that it's ever been. And this is before the mine has even started. I worry about what that's going to do to the people in my practice. I work in the emergency department, and I can see that it will be affecting people's lungs, and likely with increased volume of respiratory particulates, that we're going to be seeing more and more visits to the emergency department for respiratory complaints. There's many thousands of people in Kamloops who are just not able to connect with a family doctor because of a shortage. So IHA is actively recruiting new physicians, and there's a tremendous demand. But these physicians have a pick of places that they could go and bring their families and set up to live. And the economic argument within the city for mine has no effect on them. They get paid by MSP, so for them it's a livability function, a place where they can get a job, but they can get a job anywhere right now. So it comes down more to livability, and a mine is not something that a young physician with a family looking to start to a new community is going to be looking for.
The mine operation will crush 205,000 tons of waste rock and ore daily, and will produce dust in a finely ground form like talcum powder. Fugitive mine dust will contain the toxic materials of the mining operation and will be carried by the prevailing winds to the river valley, thus affecting the downtown and North Kamloops as well as other parts of the city. During inversions, toxic pollution from the mine will be locked over the city. Dust control efforts will require large quantities of water and thus create a difficult choice. Sufficient water to control toxic dust will risk addition of water to the soil, creating problems with soil stability, leaching and soil stability risks, or proper control of toxic dust. Who will be making the choice, and who will monitor it?
Five. All that orange gas you see, it's poisonous gas. If you were standing there right now breathing that in, you'd be carrying you out. You'd be dead. Is that right? Yeah. It's actually not even supposed to be there.
Prevailing southwest winds will bring the dust and pollution generated up there across the entire valley, and we will see probably worse than what we see here today.
Other risks relate to ground and surface water. The proposed mine will draw approximately 14.8 billion liters of water annually from Kamloops Lake. The water will be pumped uphill. All hydropower required by the mine will be heavily subsidized by the taxpayer, whose residential and small business hydro rates will increase dramatically in the next 5 years. Some of the water used by the mine will evaporate, creating more fog and haze and less sunshine in parts of the city. An even greater concern is that water for dust control will move through the permeable waste rock piles and enter the groundwater. The location of the east waste rock pile above the Peterson Creek aquifer intensifies water contamination concerns. Any toxic leachate entering the creek will have an aquatic route to the Thompson River, affecting both the river and its salmon run. Also, there is the risk that the water recharge into the soil will add to the existing problems of soil stability in Aberdeen, which already requires round-the-clock pumping to de-water certain areas to guard against slides. Many people are frustrated and mistrustful of the assessment process, which has denied them an open public forum to raise their concerns. so-called public meetings have become little more than a microphone for the proponent to sell the project. Company lists restrict meeting attendance, and KGHM called police when other interested citizens tried to attend.
I have no confidence in the proponents' promises. Their meetings are designed to give the illusion of consultation. At the public meetings that I attended, I always felt that things were restricted. At the last meeting, there was all sorts of extra space, and we knew that. So we asked the moderator if we could admit some of the people that were standing outside. We were told no. Registration closed last Thursday. They included school psychologists, librarians, people that I'd worked with many times over my career. What did the proponent do? They called the police. So when I saw that, I asked them why they did that. Their response was, "Sir, it's for your own protection." You know, I didn't feel like I needed too much protection from my own friends. But these kinds of actions make me very distrustful.
It is difficult for the public to feel protected by the review process when both senior governments have already stated their intentions regarding the approval of mining ventures.
I have huge concern about the proximity of this mine to our community, and with a career in healthcare and education, I am very concerned about the vulnerable populations in our community, the children and seniors, because we know that there's going to be toxicity blowing in our environment. And I truly do not have faith in the environmental assessment process. I'm concerned that the politics of resource development will definitely, in this province, will definitely affect the outcome of the environmental assessment.
There is even less certainty of protection if the mine proceeds. The success of mitigation ultimately depends on monitoring and enforcement. The BC Auditor General's report has described these provincial regulatory functions as inadequate to handle even present-day development. The city has no say in the decision about the mine. It also has no control over the mine operation. If approved, Ajax will be exempt from all city zoning, dust and noise bylaws. Citizen complaints will have to wait for attention from the inadequate provincial agencies. And what do young people think about the mine? The mine will have the greatest impact on their futures if it is approved.
With a mine, will there be tournaments here in the future, or will teams want to go somewhere else? Why are adults allowed to make decisions that will affect us?
As a whole, my generation, I believe we are increasingly becoming more environmentally aware, and that will be reflected in our career choices. And I myself, I've only skimmed the cover layer of environmentalism, and I could never work at Ajax mine. I would rather be unemployed.
We need to start thinking in terms of economic development that reflects the interests of all people instead of rich people. And I think that's who's going to benefit the most from this. I can't see myself getting a job at a mine like that.
And I think it's very important to keep that freedom going. And we can do that just by maintaining our self-sufficiency here, maintaining clean air, clean water, make sure the animals are still around, biodiversity. It's incredibly important, and that's the future. I believe people need to work for a living, but I mean, you need to care for what you're doing.
I grew up in Kamloops from about when I was about 3 or 4 until I moved away when I was about 19. And it's a really important place for me. I feel really connected to the land here and actually to the community. And I've been contemplating coming back here. And my parents have been really involved in looking at the prospect of the Ajax mine. I would definitely reconsider coming back here if that mine goes in. I'm not sure. To me, being outside here is what I would really come back for, and that would be totally jeopardized, the air quality and the contaminants in the water and the soil. And it actually feels scary.
The present proposal is just the thin edge of the wedge. Most people are unaware of how much land in and around Kamloops is under mineral claim. Some question why the province has not established cities as mine-free zones.
Okay, we are at Pacific Way School, and I just want to show you how close mining could come to the city of Kamloops. What we have here, right here in this grassy area, is we've got a mining claim that cuts right through the middle of this area, and it runs basically on an east-west line, and it comes to within 15 meters of the corner of the school. And the claim runs to a corner over that way, and then it goes north, and all the new houses that are being built over there are in claim. And over that way to the east, all the houses south of Aberdeen, or most of the houses south of Aberdeen, are in claim. And what that means, if you look at the area to the south here, on the hillside back here, this whole area could be under mining development. So why shouldn't areas like this be off limits?
Mineral claims are staked through Kenna Cartwright Park and down to the Thompson River across from the airport. Mining activity in this area would affect the North Shore and other parts of the city. It won't stop there. What happens in Kamloops may presage what is coming to other cities. More of the province is under mineral claim than most people know. Injustice thrives on silence. Make your voice heard.
This proposal is a recipe for disaster. One of my major concerns is the soil stability.
We all share the same airshed, and it will affect people regardless of where they live in the community. It's not going to be selective where you can get to escape it. It will affect us all.
Unfortunately, I feel like the British Columbia government is paying a whole lot more attention to industry than it is to the people, and I don't feel very protected. Money is what matters.
The local people have the best understanding of where we want our community to go, what our vision is for our community. We've invested locally millions of dollars in the Tournament Capital project, and those things I think are put at risk by a project like this.
It is an outrage to think that the average citizen has no say against the process of a proposed open pit mine within and just on the border of our city.
Our children will look at us and our grandchildren will look at us and say, where were your brains when this deal was put together? Where was your thinking about us in the future, about our economic future? Never mind the environmental issues. What about our economic issue?
I say no.
In the words of Maud Barlow, National Chairperson of Council of Canadians, people can make a difference. Make your voice heard.
I think the story here is that if people fight really hard and the community says no to something that's bad for the community, bad for the land, bad for the water, they can stop it.